Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and it's time once again for me to do another movie review. However, this time out I'm going to be doing two reviews at one time. I'll be reviewing Gamera vs. Guiron and Gamera vs. Jiger. And this is, of course, the Shout Factory re-release of these two films. And I'm very late on reviewing these. I did a review of Gamera vs. Gauss and Gamera vs. Virus in October of last year, and I had mentioned that I had purchased this set and was going to do a review of it soon. Well, here it is almost a year later, and I'm just getting to it. So I do apologize if you were waiting for it. I doubt too many people were holding their breath waiting for the review, but here it is anyway. And I'm going to gloss over both of these films because both of these movies take place in the Showa-era Gamera series after Gamera has basically been labeled the friend of all children, which is where the series started to decline, and more so in these two films than any of the previous ones. Here, Gamera is known as the friend of all children, and this seems to be common knowledge to all the child characters in the movies now, where he is actually spoken of as the friend to all children. So both of these movies do feature children as focal points. Both of these movies are very kid-oriented plot-wise, and even though it may seem strange, both of these movies are unusually violent for kid-oriented films, and I'll touch on that in just a little bit. Gamera vs. Guiron was made in 1969, and the plot is very simple. An unmanned UFO lands on the Earth in a vacant lot near the home of two boys and a little girl. The two boys get on board, and the UFO takes them to a planet called Terra, which is located on the exact opposite side of the sun from Earth, so no one has ever been able to see it or detect its presence, which is kind of a cool idea. However, when the boys arrive there, they encounter two female aliens who are first try to befriend the kids, but then it becomes apparent that they're not quite what they seem. They do possess a watchdog monster which guards and protects them named Guiron, who's very cool looking. He has a gigantic blade for a head. And he protects them from such evil creatures as a space Gauss, which is a Gauss from the original, or the movie Gamera vs. Gauss, the suit which has just basically been painted silver. And of course, it protects them from Gamera, who follows the two boys to the planet and attempts to rescue them and fights Guiron. This movie is exceptionally silly. As far as the series up to this point, it is probably the most silly of the films. There are two more films to go after Gamera vs. Jiger, which I haven't seen in quite a while and can't say if they're any more silly than this. I'm sure they could be. But up to this point, this is definitely the campiest and most goofy of the Gamera series. You've got Gamera doing gymnast moves and deflecting the star-like things that shoot out of the side of Guiron's head. He does a little dance. It's just really, really silly. The plot is very silly. Silly is just the best word I can come up with to describe this movie. Even for a Gamera film, it's pretty silly. Gamera vs. Jiger, on the other hand, is more of a return to at least a slightly more serious type of film. By no means is it a serious film, but it's not quite as goofy as Gamera vs. Guiron is by any stretch. It was made in 1970, takes place around the World's Fair in Japan, which took place in 1970. The actual beginning of the film kind of comes off as a promotional film for Expo 70, which is what it was called back then. And the creature Jiger is released when an ancient statue is taken off of an island called Wester Island. I guess it's a play off of Easter Island. They remove this statue which had kept this monster imprisoned. The monster then immediately goes after the people that have taken the statue, and it threatens to destroy the entire World's Fair. But of course, Gamera, who initially tries to stop them from removing the statue, then goes to Japan and tries to save everybody from Jiger. Jiger is also a very cool looking creature, a little more conventional than Guiron is. He looks almost recalls the Baragon from the second film in the Gamera series. And of course, the children in the movie, they actually have to enter Gamera's body when he becomes paralyzed by an egg that is laid by Jiger inside him. There's a spike at the end of Jiger's tail, which sort of impregnates Gamera, for lack of a better term. And they actually use this little mini sub, and they go inside of Gamera and encounter a baby Jiger inside, which is a scene that I remember from my childhood very vividly. It was when I was a kid, it was kind of a scary scene. Of course, now it really didn't do a whole lot to scare me. But when I was a kid, I always thought that scene was kind of creepy. Of the two films, I would say Gamera versus Jiger is the better one. Neither of these films is particularly good, even when taken into consideration that they are in the sort of declining period of the Gamera series, at least the Showa era. Taking a look at the DVD specifically, as always, at least so far with the Shout Factory releases, the presentation of the films is fantastic. Both of these are an anamorphic widescreen. The prints look great. The packaging has the same sort of cost-cutting measures that the Gauss Virus package has. Instead of having the booklet to describe the films, again, it's just the one-sheet little advertisement thing for Shout Factory releases, and the chapter stops, and both movies on one disc. And then the anatomical representation of a monster is, again, just Gamera, the same thing from Gamera the Giant Monster. This has some of the same problems as the other double feature disc, the Gamera vs. Gauss and Virus double feature. There are some spelling errors, some grammar errors, and translation oddities in the subtitles. Again, I don't watch these with the English dubs, which this does include for both films. I always watch it in the original Japanese language with the subtitles on. I didn't see time code in the subtitles for these two films like I did in the previous release, but I did see some punctuation errors, spelling errors. Just it makes it kind of hard to read when you're like, what the hell does that say? And then you have to read it over again. Again, not trying to be a grammar Nazi, but because the first two films in the series were so impeccably done, it's just kind of disappointing to see that the quality falls off a little bit on these. But again, once again, I am not complaining for having these two films look and sound as good as they do for movies that really, you know, have such a limited audience. So if I had to review the movies, Gamera vs. Guiron, I would give a 3 out of 10. It's really not a very good film, even for a Gamera movie. Gamera vs. Jiger, I would give it a 5 out of 10. I liked it more than the Guiron film, but again, it's still not an exceptionally great movie. So there you go. That's my quick review of the double feature of Gamera vs. Guiron and Gamera vs. Jiger. I did purchase the next double feature in the Shout Factory releases, which is Gamera vs. Zigra and Gamera the Super Monster, and I will get those online, the review online for that, and I won't have to wait a year to see that review. So thanks again for watching, everybody. As always, feel free to comment, rate, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And thanks again for watching. Bye.